Okay, the session for electrical and mechanical pricing principles and applications has officially begun. Mr. Blessing, please unmute, introduce yourself, and go ahead with your presentation. All the best.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Blessing. I'll be doing a presentation on behalf of the PRIM, specifically looking at electrical and mechanical works. However, before we proceed, I see MECO Investments has got a hand up. Can we?
I think that was the previous hand, Mr. Blessing. He has asked a question in the chat box. And the question is, Mr. London, what's your country code? And he's saying, I am into housing project. Can I specifically have a software for Namibian rates? Yes, MECO, we've got Namibian rates. And on the second segment, after we break, we'll be doing software applications. So we'll take a Namibian example as well to show you that you can do building work, civil, electrical, mechanical, roads in Namibia as well as in South Africa.
All right. Before I proceed, can those that are not in a position to ask any questions, please put down your hands because it would. I see Charles Sains is coming through again. Mr. Charles? Hello? All right, I'll take the liberty to proceed with the hands up. I'll assume that maybe it's just a button that has been left. It's just a button that has been left on. All right. As I said before, that I'll be presenting the electrical and mechanical works on behalf of the PRIM, the software, how we have come to build rates within the PRIM, specifically on the electrical and mechanical works. However, most of the times that I do presentation of this nature, I like to stick to the electrical part and a bit of mechanical. However, today I'll try and balance the two. Right. Can we then please try to understand or maybe focus more on what this will entail? Nothing very different from Reader's presentation on how we build up rates, but there are a few things or pointers that I would like to add on, specifically on the mechanical works and electrical works. As you know, electrical works is divided into two, which is building services and electrical infrastructure. You discover that things tend to change as you move from electrical building to electrical infrastructure, right? There is quite some differences there that we need to take into consideration as we're doing the prices. All right. In pricing this work, it is very important for the tenderer or the prospective contractor to conduct site visit to assess conditions. This enables them to have an overview or an overview of exactly how the site looks like in terms of accessibility and other items that might be needed as you do the work. That is why it's very important. I normally see people when they go for site visits, they take 5-10 minutes. But in principle, if you are somebody who is willing to do the job at a profitable and thorough, you should take time to assess the site, see what can be done and things like that. It's also very important to read and understand the specifications and the drawings. These are very important, especially on the mechanical part. Without the specifications and the drawings, you might as well not go for the work, because most of the work is hidden within the specifications and the documents. We tend to assume a lot of things in this regard, that when we get to price a tender, especially, what we normally do is you are presented with a BOQ without the specifications, without the drawings. which is very wrong, especially when you do electrical infrastructure and mechanical, because those two are talking to your pricing model that you need to adhere to. At a certain stage during your pricing, I've seen and I've noted that most contractors tend to assume what is not there and they just plug in prices. The unfortunate part is if you get that job and your pricing is not right, you might not even be able to do the work, or you are going to try and force to do the work, and you discover right in between that you've actually shot yourself in the foot. So it is very important that we read and understand the specifications and be able to interpret the drawings. So I suggest when you're pricing for this work, it is also very important that you have people who are talking on behalf of quantity surveyors here, people who understand the work. The quantity surveyor will help you to put up the rate, but with the help of a specialist in that field, because they will be able to tell you or interpret what the specification is saying, and they'll be able to interpret what the drawing is saying, and then you can now merge the two together so that your price is talking to both the specification and the drawing. Those two go hand in hand, right? They determine the installation compliance requirements, very important, especially on the electrical and also on the mechanical. It's very important to determine the installation compliance requirements. Some requirements are way out of the standard requirements. Say, for instance, on the electrical work, normally everybody is moving around talking about a COC and things like that. You get installations where requirements go beyond the COC. What we normally call the statutory requirements of handover pack in any project. Those requirements are very important, and some of them, they come at a price that you need to filter in within your rate, right? You need to know what kind of personnel that you need to assign to do specific task. That is the installation tradesperson and the tools. They are different tools for different trades and things like that within the electrical and mechanical. Mechanical is vast. Mechanical would come in terms of the pipe work, the boilers, you have HVAC, you have material handling equipment. So you've got pumps. So you need to know what tools you need to have to be able to execute certain works within the mechanical scope of works. Electrical, also the same. Installing a plug and connecting a transformer, the tools that are being used there are two different tools. So you also need to determine that. But however, it's very important that people who do this kind of work be part of the pricing team, because they will help you and assist you in a lot of ways, more than one, regarding the pricing, right? We'll be able to determine the material and transportation costs for most of these things. Transporting a plug and transporting a transformer are two different things. You would need, for instance, what would you need for transportation of a transformer? You obviously need a truck with a crane or a crane truck that will be able to hoist and unhoist the transformer. Whereas a plug, you can put it in your bag, I'm just saying, and continue with your work, right? As well, while we're doing this, we're going to convert the final units that we would have worked out into the BOQ, right? We'll add our markup profit, accessories, wastages, and etc. And then we transfer all these into our BOQ based on the fact that we've understood, we've done the site visit and we understood what personnel we need, we've understood the material requirements, the material handling and everything. Then we transfer all that to our BOQ so that we can present it to a prospective client that we need to do the work for on their behalf, so that they can give us the job or something. Mr. Lunga, I don't know if there's anyone with a question at this stage. I'll take the liberty to move on to the next slide, Mr. Lunga. It looks like we don't have a question.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat box. We are clear. I think everyone is still a bit of a electric shock by your presentation. So let's absorb the shocks as we go along, and I'll just switch over to the next slide so that we can proceed, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, 5 tips that, the tips can be as many as 100, but to specifically look at the 5 tips that you should look out for when pricing for electrical works. Do not misinterpret, special gift items, special fit items, for standard items. There is a tendency to misinterpret items when pricing for this. Like I said, I'll refer to my earlier slide, that the specification document and the drawings are very important. You should never attempt to price, especially on the electrical infrastructure and mechanical, to price a BOQ if you don't have those two, because I can tell you now, in most cases, you probably are doing something that is very wrong. You will discover that after getting the job, you can't even do the job. That's actually embarrassing, not only for the person who has priced it, but for your organization as well. That you've been given the job and you can't seem to do the job because you've misinterpreted most of special fit items, especially on the mechanical aspect. Right? Do not generalize all electrical disciplines. Like I said, we've got building services and we've got electrical infrastructure. Those two are two different, but we are both dealing with electrical. Right? Electrical infrastructure is got medium voltage. You've got instrumentation. You've got specialized electrical fittings within the electrical infrastructure, and whereas building services is items that we live with day to day, from home to work, but electrical infrastructure, you're moving in from building to plants. So with plants, mostly, if you don't have a drawing or if you don't have the specification, then it is not advisable that you even attempt to price that work. It's actually advisable for you to start reading the specification and understand the drawings before you even get to the prices. So those two are part of the pricing that you would need to use so that you can get to your final price, right? But however, most companies that I've dealt with normally send in a BOQ for pricing to their suppliers, and then you get suppliers asking you for specification or drawings or both or one of the two, right? Then you should know that you are getting things sorted in an orderly way, especially if it's going to be electrical infrastructure. Right, you should start with the tender drawings and specifications when looking at the BOQ. Very important, that one. Take into account customs, payments, fittings, training, and exchange rates when pricing imported items. This is particularly very important when you do mechanical and electrical, which is EP. It's very important because most of the items are not manufactured locally. We've got items coming in from as far as Italy on the mechanical part, China, electrical part. We've got Germany. We've got all these other countries that manufacture specialized plant items that we don't manufacture here in South Africa. So it's very important to take all those into account when you're pricing for that tender. You will get a scenario, a situation whereby you need to do a FET, which is a FET acceptance test for items that are being manufactured outside the country, which means you would need to go to Italy, for example. You are going to spend 3-4 days for that FET acceptance. You need traveling. You would need air tickets. You need all those things. All those things need to be filtered within that rate because there are certain items that will not be dispatched off without having gone through certain QA processes, like the factory acceptance test is one of them. right, take into account once-off project specific manufactured goods items. This is very, very common, especially if you are going to do plants. We're looking at, say, maybe sewer plants. You're looking at, say, maybe water treatment plants. There are items that are customarily made for that specific site that you will never find in a site or on a site elsewhere in South Africa, but only here on that particular site. That has happened in many cases where you've got engineers from as far as Germany coming to do a design, and that design is specific for that particular plant. So what it simply means is items on that plant you cannot superimpose to the other plant because they have been specifically designed using conditions and whatever other parameters might be necessary with reference to that site. Right, Mr. Lunga, if there is no questions, can I be allowed to move on? Unless if there's questions, then I'm in a position to entertain the question.
Can you please give us an example of a project where there was a once-off specific manufacturer good or item? And perhaps if you can go as far as telling us what whoever was pricing got wrong, and when they arrived on site, what transpired, and how that affected, obviously, the profitability of a project.
Okay, I will go and I'm going to come and give examples. There is currently, I'm currently involved in a project where the design was copied from Canada, right? And they were trying to replicate that design to conditions in South Africa. So most of the items within that design were special fit items that were particular to that project because their project needs to meet certain international standards that would make it an international arena. I'm not going to disclose what project it is. I'm not going to disclose the location of the project. I'm not going to disclose names of people or organizations involved in that project. I'll keep my example vague so that I protect the people doing the project. Now, what we discovered is they had an assumed budget. And because we are people who work with people that are probably, or that will eventually become our prospective clients, we tend to know that there's a certain budget for such items, right? They'll come to you, they throw a BOQ to you and say, no, can you price this BOQ and make sure that it's within a price range of about this much. You go on, you price that BOQ, and items that were supposed to be given correct prices were priced wrongly, and even from the engineering part, from the consulting part, there were certain prices that would not meet. We discovered now that some of the items that we needed for that project were supposed to be imported from Canada, right? So that on its own, it took the whole project was actually underquoted. Just the electrical component, I think it's close to 27 million. The mechanical component was underquoted, I think close to about 11 million. The contractor was given the work, and there is a very serious standoff as we speak. It's because of such things or such items that we don't look at and try and do our work diligently and in a professional manner, that we work towards getting to a certain amount, but without understanding what exactly is happening on the ground. there was no specification document. It was just a price and no specification document. Now you've been given the work and you are stuck. I'm actually involved in that project, and yeah, it's going to be either the project being cancelled, or I don't know what's going to happen, but there's a serious back and forth regarding that. We're just hoping that some miracle happens and then that money is made available. But in future, as contractors, as you go forward with your work and with your companies, if you want them to grow, mainly, I mean, if you want them to grow and have a reputation that is not a reputation that is good, it is very important to understand what you are about to get into before you get into it, because trying to understand the work that you are doing when you are already doing it, it's going to cause a lot of problems. I don't know if this example serves as what could be something that we can use for specific fit items on a particular site. Most of the equipment, especially on the electrical part, we cannot get it in South Africa. It has to be imported from elsewhere. But the assumption was it could be, and people just price without even having spoken to suppliers in Canada. And yeah, it's a standoff. I don't know, Mr. Lunga, if this makes an example of what I'm talking about. There is a project currently like that as I speak.
Thanks for that. I think it was very important. You have actually done more than that. You've given us a practical feel of what is actually happening on your particular project that you're managing, and how this misinterpretation during the pricing stage has led to the crisis that you are having currently in the project. And like you just correctly said it, you are hoping for a miracle to happen because things are very bad. And it all goes back to our ability to price and recognize that certain items are once off, project specific, and therefore they must be dealt with according to their merits. So thank you for that. If you can allow me then to switch over to your first example. You're going to do 3 examples: DB board, I think it's the power cables, a DB board, as well as a transformer. So I'm going to start with the power cables. Is that fine with you?
Yes, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. Let me open it.
All right, good morning once again. We are going to look at our first example of how we can build a rate, basically within the electrical component of your work. Funny though, I don't see any hands coming up. I don't know if it worries me as well that when we are presenting like this, it also makes me feel good to see people putting up their hands to say it shows that I'm talking to an audience that generally is understanding what we are trying to do. But I'll assume that at this stage, we all understand. I should be expecting to see hands coming up maybe after the first example or after the second example. But please, if you seem not to understand anything, feel free to ask questions so that we can interact. This is a two-way sort of like a presentation. I get to present and you get to ask questions as well, right? We are going to look at an example where we are upgrading electrical services within a community health facility, right? We've been asked to supply, deliver, offload, and install 4 core 70mm SW cable from transformer to a new distribution board. Remember, already the description there tells us that supply, deliver, offload, and install 4 core 70mm SW cable transformer to the new distribution board. That description on its own tells you a lot, right? That you are requested to supply, they're expected to deliver, offload. One would ask, I mean, offloading a cable, yes. It now goes to what is underneath the description, the whole gist of the scope, to say maybe it's 400 meters of 70 millimeter cable, of which you can't offload using your hands. But anyway, we'll take it as we go, right? The unit of measurement there is in meters, and the activities is being carried out somewhere in Gauteng, right? The key activities there, right? What are we doing, right? Our activity is right. Key is average production output. How many meters? That's 15, right? The unit of measurement is the number of meters per day, right? That is the unit of measurement, right? For those that might want more clarity on the unit of measurement, we're looking at, right, the installation of how many meters can we install per day, which now becomes our unit of measurement, right? The key resources, we're talking about what do we need to carry out this activity, right? Do we need any plant and machinery? Now, according to this, we don't need it, right? Why? Because it all comes back to the fact that I have sat down with the guys physically doing the work on site, and I asked them, can 15 meters of cable be carried or handled in any other form? Do we need a crane? Do we need a truck to carry it from one place to the other or something? Then they'll tell you, no, we don't. 15 meters, we can work with 15 meters with our bare hands, right? Right. So key to that was I did speak to the people who are actually doing the work as I was pricing my work. But now, if that changes to say 1,000 meters, then they will tell me, no, we cannot. We would need a crane, we would need this and that. So I have to filter in my machinery and plant resources in that trade. But in this case, they told me we don't need it, right? The key resources in terms of labor, what do we need? You need to identify. This is a 70 square millimeter cable that we need to install. 70 square millimeter cable, which is 4-core, is ordinary cable. But if it was any other kind of cable, right, would identify other resources apart from these ones that we've identified. So what do we need there? We need an electrician, right? The electrician, the activity is still cable installation, the required quantity. How many electricians? Here, when I talk about electrician, I'm talking about the qualified electrician, right? We're talking about a qualified electrician, right? And how many electricians do we need? We obviously don't need, because they come at a cost, right? If it was possible, we'd have half an electrician, but in this case, because we can round off to one, we need one electrician, right? The unit production, the unit of measurement is meters per day. How many meters can you lay? Output is 15, measurement is day. The unit rate, the electrician will come at a unit rate of 850.23 per day, which comes to 850 rands 23 cents, right? What else do we need? We need an assistant electrician, right? In most cases, you discover that assistant electrician can work, can take over for the electrician, but the electrician can never take over for the assistant electrician. In most cases, the assistant electrician takes over for the electrician. So it depends on how good you trust your assistant electricians to carry out the electrician functions. The electrician comes in just for the QA process to say the installation was done according to certain standards and things like that, right? We also need the general labor, right? The assistant electrician comes at a rate of, say, 648 per day, right? Given all the parameters, same as electrician, the assistant electrician will be installing the cable. We require 2 of them, right? We require 2 assistant electricians, right? The production unit of measurement is meters per day. Daily production output is 15 meters. Unit of measurement is day, and the rate is 648. But because we require 2, we multiply that rate by 2, right? And then the general labor, these are the guys that are doing the general labor, like anywhere else, right? They are also going to be installing the cable. We need 2 of them. The production unit of measurement is meters per day. How many meters do they need to install? 15 meters. The unit of measurement is day, and then the rate at which they will be paid is 332 rands per day. But because we've got 2 of them, then we multiply that rate by 2. So the total amount of human resource that we need to carry out this activity per day comes out to 2,810 rands 23 cents. Can we move on to, okay. Right. We now go to the other key resources. The other key resources becomes the material itself. Right. They say the 4-core 70 millimeter SW cable, right? It's going to be installed. The usage, unit of measurement, that's meters per day. The usage rate is 15 meters. Required daily quantity is 15 meters, and the unit price is 450. We are saying a meter of the 4-core 70 millimeter SWA cable is 450, right? But because every day we need to have we need to have installed 15 meters. I mean, 15 meters is just an example. With this kind of a cable, you can install 3,000-4,000 meters a day, depending on the methods being used, like the methods that you've identified. Yes, there can be machines that can be used to install the cable, but at this stage, we are going to try as hard as possible to limit our scope to what is practical with us, especially here in Africa, where we've limited our resource to basically human and not machine resource. In other countries, this can be done by machines. You actually don't need humans. Machines can do this kind of work, but we want to talk about examples that we meet on a day-to-day basis, examples that talk to our situation on a day-to-day basis, right? So we are saying that the 4-core 70 millimeter SW cable is going to cost us 450 rands per meter, right? But because we need 15 meters, we have to multiply that by 15 to get our total cost for the material, right? The total amount, right? We allow for 5% wastage of cards and things like that. When we allow that 5%, we filter it in there to get 5% of 6,750. The total becomes 7,087. However, this 5% wastage of off cards is a discretion that it's not entirely forced, depending on, because obviously you're bidding with 200 other contractors. It comes to a stage whereby if you want to take your rate down or you want to get the job based on your pricing, you might choose to include it, but it's always advisable that you include, especially on the wastage part, right? If you include that 5% now, we move on to try and build, or we're moving on to build our rate now, right? We look at the resources, the plant machinery, we don't need anything, right? Which becomes 0. The labor plus the tooling, there, it's 2,810 cents, 810.23, right? Our material cost is 7,087.50, right? The total resource cost, right, is 9,897.73, right? So the unit cost is what now? Is 659.85. Now the unit cost is, we divide the total resource cost by 15 because we are working with 15. For us to get the unit cost, it's now 659 cents, 659 rand, sorry, 0.85, right? Added onto our rate, right? We now have to put allowances. Remember, this rate is encompassing all the other items that you would need to filter in, say, for your profits and things like that. We now are going to allow for other items within that rate that would make our company or our work profitable, right? We allow for 10% for material delays and handling risks, right? Material 10% delays and handling risks, right? When the material has been delayed, there's people who are calling, sending emails, correspondences with consultants or the client to tell them that the material, you need to set up those meetings. Sometimes you need to drive. So that rate comes in at that, right? You allow for 2% activity overheads. 2% activity overheads is, we've got overheads as we do this activity. Overheads can come in various forms, unexpected eventualities on site and things like that. We also need to allow that. We get our price there. I mean, we get our rate there, and then we allow for overall after all these activity. I mean, after all these inputted prices, we need to make a profit. All right. On top of all these, we need to make a profit. Now we allow for a 15% profit. It is a profit again. Is at a discretion of your organization or company, right? Some would want 200% profit. Some would want 300%. It depends really on who you are and if you know your game very well. But maximum allowed is obviously 15. Maximum normal profit. There is no profit that is allowed. It depends on your organization as well. Again, to say, okay, we want to make a 15% profit. You add on the 15% profit, right? So the rate to be transferred finally to the BOQ is 838.01. So which means our BOQ now would have to have a rate per meter of this 4-core 70 millimeter SW cable of 838 rands, 0.01 cents. But now look at how we've moved from 450, right, to 838. It's because we've filtered all these other items that we need to carry out that activity. I think we are done with our first presentation, our first example. Mr. Lunga, if we could move on, and unless if we have questions that we need to entertain at this stage, I'm more than willing to answer those questions.
Let's open up the floor, guys. Please, we welcome questions, we welcome comments, we welcome criticism, and we also welcome compliments. So please, the floor is yours. You can type in on the chat box, or you can raise your hand. We identify you, you unmute your mic, and you talk. So go ahead. I know it's electrical, mechanical, it's quite specialized, but please, for the value add, you can make a comment.
Yes, Alistair Ashley, good morning to you.
Mr. Blessing.
How's it?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Yes, I've just looked at the previous for the labor rates. And there's one thing I just want to get clarity on the differences between an assistant electrician and an electrician. Can just kindly, cause in my sector, which I'm currently in, I've just moved into electrical installations, and I kind of find it very fascinating, and you learn a lot from that, things that you've never knew, especially now with the renewable energy that is coming in the country, or developments that's happening, that you have to buy certain tools that you don't, as you said, that you even doesn't get in this country or in Africa, such as your VFL testing machines, your IV curve testing machines, those type of things. But for assistants, as assistant electrician and an electrician, does it mean that an electrician, he must have a COC, then he's qualified as an electrician, or is it just having his basic trade certification, all that?
All right, that's a very good question, and I'll answer it in two ways, right? An electrician is an electrician, right? We've got electricians that have gone for their apprentice, right? 4 years, and they are in the field already. That's an electrician, right? That electrician somehow is not registered. He doesn't cease being an electrician. He's an electrician but not registered. I'll give an example of an engineer. An engineer with a Bachelor of Engineering does not cease being an engineer because he's not a registered. He's not registered with AXA, right? He's an engineer, but the fact is he's not registered. So in our context, to make things very clear, in our context here, especially in the South African context, when we talk of an electrician, in most cases, we're talking of an electrician who's registered. A registered electrician is the one who is in a position to issue a COC. But in most cases, you've got electricians way better than those that are registered, who have gone for their apprenticeship training. Those are electricians as well. But the mere fact that they're not registered does not make them less of an electrician, right? Again, that electrician cannot act as an assistant, right? An assistant electrician is an electrician who's gotten his experience through in-house training. You get a gentleman or a lady who have been working with an electrician, say for 10, 15 years, right? They have probably matric as their only qualification, but because they've been doing the same thing for over a number of years, they become so good at it, and they become, in most cases, better than the person who's been teaching them. I can tell you now. That person becomes an assistant electrician, right? If you manage to get a person like that, right, they can be assigned tasks that an electrician would do. And the registered electrician would come and do the QA process to check if all the lugs have been lugged correctly, to do the measurements, earth resistance measurements, the earth leakage test. I'm talking of basic things here.
Okay.
There are other tests that can be done, but assistant electricians can act as an electrician, but an electrician will not be able to act as an assistant.
Okay. So in short, it's like what I'm learning from my electricians are making me an assistant electrician. I know how to put on a gland. I know how to measure the cables. I know how to take off the sleeves, arm rings, and all that. So that's an assistant.
That task can be done by, like taking off armoring. That can be done by the general hand. When we talk of an assistant electrician, we're talking of somebody who knows how to terminate a transformer, because he has seen this activity being done more than 100 times, and he's so sure that whatever he's doing is correct. The electrician only comes now to check if it has been done correctly.
Okay.
Yes.
No,
but
thank you.
Activities like cutting the cable, taking off the armoring, that can be done by the general labor. You don't want to waste resource where it's not needed, where you can sometimes leave general labor doing stuff that an assistant electrician should be doing, and the assistant electrician will go and attend to items that I'm trying to be specific.
Yes.
To what we have here in South Africa, because obviously when I start giving examples of places that we've never been to, especially regarding to site activities where we've never worked, then it would not work. But in other places, if you're going to be the electrician, you would rather be the electrician, nothing more. Okay. I hope that answers you, Mr.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mr. Blessing.
100%.
France has raised their hands. If you can unmute and question, comment, compliment, criticism, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to know what type of information underground.
Unfortunately, I can't hear you, Mr. France. I think your microphone.
Yeah, your mic is very low. It's either you try and, I don't know what you can do with your mic, or you can type your question on the chat box.
Okay, I can type.
Okay, just type on the chat box. and we'll answer it as soon as it appears. But I think in the interest of time, Mr. Blessing, do you want to go on to the next example? And then you come back to France.
Yes, Mr. Franz, can you allow us to proceed? Then we can take the questions a bit later.
He says, fine.
All right, 100%. Can we go to the next example, Mr. Lunga? I see we're running out of time. I'm supposed to be finishing, I think, now. I'm actually, I've overshot my time with 5 minutes already. I'll quickly do the other examples so that at least the next presenter can find themselves doing. All right. Okay, the next example, we'll look at the supply, transportation, offload, install, and commission a distribution board. The unit of measurement in the BOQ becomes number. This activity is being done in Gauteng, right? Key activities is average unit production. Name of the activity is installation of cable or cable laying, right? Key resource that we might need for this kind of activity, right? It's a distribution board. It depends. We've got small distribution boards from 12 way to 300 way. Those are some of the examples that we can have. But in this particular example, we've decided not to have any key resource and plant. I mean, plant is a key resource, right? The labor that we might need for doing this activity, right? We discovered that we need a master COC. A master COC is somebody who would issue a COC after we've done that. I'll explain further. If Mr. Lunga, you can slide if you can move up the presentation, right? We may need a master COC, we need an electrician and a general labor. Right. Now, you'll see here in this kind of activity, we've decided to have a master COC, we've decided to have an electrician, we've decided to have a general labor. Right. Because the activity is a scope of a master electrician, because we need a master COC. This is a distribution board. We'll assume this distribution board, or it's an MCC or a motor control center. I hope you would understand, all of you, what a motor control center is. A motor control center is a distribution board, but quite different from the normal distribution boards that we know on a day-to-day basis. Right? The master COC is going to issue the COC in this kind of an installation. Right? What are they responsible for? They are responsible for commissioning. Right? Commissioning is now finally putting everything into life again. We all know what, right? So how many master COCs do we need? We need one. The unit production of measurement is number per days, right? And then the output is 1 unit of measurement is day, and the rate, the master COC comes at a rate of 1,790.00 per day, right? The electrician is an installation electrician. He is going to be doing now the installation, right, of the distribution board. Because we've got the master issuing the COC, we need to have the electrician doing the installation physically because of the kind of activity, right? We'll need one electrician for the day, and the production output is 1, and the unit of measurement is day, and the electrician comes at a price of 850.23, and we'll need general labor, which is general assistance. We need 2 of them to be assisting the electrician, and then they come at a rate of 332 rand per day, right? So the total human resource that we need, or the labor resource that we need, works out to 3,304.23, right? That's what we need for the day. All right. Just excuse me a second. All right, I'm back. All right, so that's the key resource that we need to do this kind of work. Can we move our slide up a bit, Mr. Lunga? All right, the material requirements, we've we need the DB board to do the installation, right? So the distribution board, we've called the supplier or the manufacturer of the distribution board. They've given us a price, right? And the price of the distribution board is 100,000. I'm not going to look at other elements within the BOQ because from our previous example, we've noted and we understand what they are, right? So that DB board is going to cost us 100,000. To get from the manufacturer to site. Now we look at how we'll build up this rate, right? So the resources that we need, the plant and machinery, we said we don't need. The labor plus the tools, we've given it we have calculated it to be 3,304.23. 3,304.23. The labor plus the tools, that's 3,304.23. The material will cost us 100,000. The total resource cost comes to 103,304.23, right? And then the unit cost for that particular DB, because here it's one and its number, it becomes 103,304.23, right? The allowances, what do we need to input so that we can be profitable on this job, right? Allow for 10% material delays and handling costs, right? We might be holding that, or we might be handling that DB board. The paint scratches or something, we need to do the paint work. All those allowances will be allowed there. We allow for 2% activity overheads where we need to call in and then have meetings if there is any delays and things like that. I mean, those are some of the overheads. You discover that you might need a certain bolt and nut as you are installing the DB board. It didn't come with the bolt and nut. You might need steel to fix it to the ground and things like that. Those overheads should come in there. Then you allow for 33% profit. Now you see that from our first profit, which was 15, now we're at 33. We might end up at 100 as well. So when you allow that 33% profit, the total unit cost of that becomes 149,791 rands and 18 cents. So the price that will finally transfer to the BOQ for just that DB board is 149,791.13. So which means that from 100,000 from the manufacturer, right, we've built up our rate to come to 149,791.13. And we move on to the next slide. I just want to be as quick as possible, right? Right. Our next example is going to be supply, transport, offload, and commission 2.2 kV switch gear and 6.6 kVA dry type transformer. Cables have been priced elsewhere in the BOQ. We are assuming this is a job that a contractor was doing and they couldn't finish, and these are the items that were remaining, and we've been asked to supply and install these things, right? The required unit of measurement is numbered. This is being done in the Northern Cape. Right, the activity installation and commissioning average production output is 1 unit of measurement is number per day. What do we need to carry out this activity? Right, we will obviously need a crane. Now you can see we need machinery, because I've been sitting with the electricians, people who do the physical work on site, and trying to price. I asked them, so what do you think we'll need? Yes, we'll need a crane, a 10-ton crane, right? We'll need a flatbed, right? Right, on the crane, what is the crane going to do? Is to hoist into position. It will lift the transformers or the switch gear from where it is, and it will hoist it into position. We can't do that using general hands. We require one crane, right? And it comes at a price of 25,000 rands per day, right? And we will need it for 2 days, right? The flatbed, it is the flatbed. Obviously, the crane is just to hoist and drop. So we assume that maybe items have been delivered maybe 20-30 meters away from where they're supposed to be installed. So the crane will hoist, and then it will put it on a flatbed, and then the flatbed drives to the nearest position where the crane can hoist. Then it takes it from the flatbed to the position where it's going to be finally installed. So that flatbed comes, we need that flatbed for 1 day. I mean, we need one flatbed for that activity. The daily production output has to be 2, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that we'll need the flatbed for 2 days. Sometimes you can position all the other items that you want to install on the same day, but for purposes of progress and for purposes of being very transparent and clear on this example, we'll probably need a crane and a flatbed. Every time there's a crane, there has to be a flatbed. You never know when you might need it. But that flatbed is coming at a rate of 6,000 rands per day, right? So it transfers the total resource, which is the plant and machinery that we might need in a day, is 56,000. What are the key labor resources? We're talking of human resources. Again, I'm very sorry for my time. I'll try to be as fast as possible. Right. The labor type that we need for this kind of activities, we need a commissioning engineer. Tembani Dube, I see your hand is up. Can I finish off the presentation and then maybe I can answer your question, if that's okay?
No, I think his question is very simple. You can tackle it quickly, or I can tackle it quickly.
Okay, can you tackle it, because I didn't understand what he was asking.
Okay, so he's asking about, I think, the labor output, number one, so the daily output per day for labor, as well as wastage. He's asking how does it vary, or why does it vary, and how can this be accurately approached? Very, very beautiful question. Thank you for that. So to answer your question, you'll realize that as all the presenters have been presenting building works and now electrical works, the type of work that you do will inform the production output that you can approach that particular work in a day's work. So that is the first thing that informs you the type of production output. So it's not going to be the same. Let me give you a practical example. If I'm excavating for trenches, and I'm excavating in a soft area, and I know that I'm not expecting clay, the daily production output of, let's say I'm using plant, a TLB, will be plus minus 50 meters per day on average, right? Now let's take this very thing and then remove a TLB and put humans. You'll realize humans will actually produce lower than the actual plant. So those are the things that you need to take into account as it relates to the different production outputs. Similar to wastage, if I am laying bricks, right, I'm building a house, I'm doing the superstructure, and if I'm cutting cables in terms of electrical installation, the wastages there are totally different. Why? Because I'm doing different activities, and the expertise as well as my resource team put together are different. And just by the mere fact that they are different, you should expect that the way that we handle it insofar as completeness as well as wastage is concerned, those are two different things. Then lastly now, the last part of your question, how can this be approached to make sure that whenever you put together a rate, you are accurate? So I think how you can approach it, you need to deal with each discipline and each trade with its own merits. So what I'm saying is that each discipline between electrical, civils, buildings, mechanical, and roadworks, right? Each has its own merits, each has its activity requirements, and each has its own activity requirements and resource requirements, as well as the level of competency of those resources, whether it's human resource or plant, fuel, and everything else. So that is how you need to deal with. You cannot just put a flat rate for production output of electrical as well as roads and everything else. It's not the same. That's the first approach to it. The second approach to it will obviously have a very comprehensive database that you can actually refer to. If you say that now I'm pricing electrical, you've got a table to give you the electrical production output. If it's roads, you've got a table for that. If it's civils, you've got a table for that. Then it's easy for you now to deal with each service or each category with its own merit. For all those, rather, the tables that are there will then guide you in that. Just last point on that, I think on the software as well, we've got individual tables for electrical production output, roads, civils, stormwater, sewer, as well as electrical. So mechanical as well as water services. That then helps you deal with each rate or each production output in its own merit. Thank you. You can carry on, Mr. Blessing. Sorry for the long answer, but it was a very important point. I couldn't resist providing a comprehensive answer.
All right. Like we've said, the plant and machinery resource, we've looked at it, it has come to about 56,000. Right. What other key resources do we need? We need the human resource, which is the labor. Right. So on the labor, we will need a commissioning engineer who is going to be doing the commissioning of this activity. Right. We need one. Their unit production measurement is number per day. Their daily production output is 2. Right, unit of measurement is day, and then the unit rate is 6,400. We're saying we're going to be paying this commissioning engineer 6,400 per day, right? QA engineer, inspector, depending whichever way you choose to call them, right? They are responsible for inspections at every stage of installation or activity. We will need them for 3 days, and then they come at a rate of 6,400 rands per day. But because we need them for 3 days, we multiply by 3. We again need the master COC. Their main task here is for health and safety and installation. Master COCs are mostly for health and safety around that. Then we'll need them for 10 days, and then it comes at a rate of 3,360 per day, and we'll discover that for this kind of activity we'll need them we would have to pay them 33,600, right? And then the installation electrician is physically doing the installation as in the previous examples. It comes at a rate of 2,800 per day, and we'll need them for 10 days, so their rate comes to 28 for them to complete the activity. Assistant electrician, same thing, installation. We would need 2 assistants for 10 days, and then they come at a rate of 1,600. So it's 1,600 times 10 times 2, which is 32,000. The general labor, right? This is for general assistants. Lift that there, put that there, and things like that. You know, we need 6 of them, right, for 10 days. And then each general labor is being paid 720 rands a day. We multiply that by 10, and then again multiply that by 6. It gives us 43,200, which comes to 168,000 rands, 800 rands for our key resource labor. Right. We are now going to build up that rate as per our example here, right? Oh, sorry, yeah, we still have another resource which we need, which is the materials. The 2.2 kV switch gear, right, is going to cost 3 million from the supplier. The 6.6 kVA transformer is going to cost 800,000 from the supplier. So our key resource, which is the materials that we normally refer to, is going to cost us 3.8 million, right? To build up that rate now, we need to look at all these sub items that we've been working on so that we can build our rate, right? So the plant and machinery we said is 56, labor plus tools we said is 168,800. The material is coming to 3.8 million, right? The total resource cost is 4,024,800, right? And then the unit cost for that particular activity is 4,024,000, right? We now put in our allowances, right, to say allow for 10% of material delays and handling. This is 402,000, 480,000, 402,480, right? You can see that the 10% is a bit too steep there. Yes, that is very normal, especially when you are dealing with this kind of materials. The meetings, the drawings, updated drawings, the changes, the meetings, they're never ending meetings until you get things right. So that amount should cater for that. And then allow for 2% activity overheads, right? The material is on site, and what you assumed was going to work in terms of installation is not working. You need to refabricate this and fabricate that again so that it is compatible with this. that 80,000 will come in, and you allow for 20% profit, it comes to 804,960. Right. The rate that will transfer to the BOQ for this particular activity is going to be 5,312,736,000 rand. That concludes my last example. I don't know if there's any questions that people might want to raise at this stage.
Yeah, let's just wait for the comment section. Please raise your hands, or like I said, in the comment box, put in your question, your compliment, your criticism, or anything to show that indeed whatever Mr. Blessing was talking about is very valuable, and you've learned a thing or two. And I know that most of us are not electrical specialists, but I think that it's very important for us to recognize what goes into electrical work, for us to not take that for granted whenever we are pricing work that is a component of electrical work. So let's go for it. Let's put comments, queries, or compliments before he closes off.
Mr. Luma, I assume there is no questions at all.
Let's just give it a couple of more seconds. You know that your presentations are always shocking us. You know, we feel electrified. So, so let's just wait. Maybe people are typing a bit slow. Alistair Ashley raised her hand. Please unmute and comment.
Yes, sir. No, it's, this actually, the presentation is great. I've started learning a lot on how to work on this or pricing into a BOQ. Just one thing with this current, the PRN, the specific presentation that was done, and all other like your civil and your building, how well is this being used in our country, South Africa currently, and other businesses? That's just what I wanted to know.
Okay, I can come in there. Thank you for your question. Very, very, very good question. Currently, it's being used in the Eastern Cape. It's being used in the Northern Cape. It's being used in the Northwest. It's being used in Mpumalanga, and of course in Gauteng, and a couple of users in Limpopo. The range of contractors that are using the system range from grade 1, predominantly, so grade 1, 2, then you've got 4 and 5, and you also have a couple of, I think, grade 7 and 8. And recently we were in negotiation with, I think, a couple of grade 9 guys that seriously use the system. And also in terms of the disciplines that they do it for, they would use it for civil works, building works, electrical and mechanical works, where they engage with Mr. Blessing. Wherever they have queries that the system cannot provide, Mr. Blessing is always there on a WhatsApp call for them to interact and solve their pricing problems. So so that's how the system is being currently used in the country. Thank you very much.
No, perfect. And that means it makes the playing field fairly if everyone is having this then.
Yes, of course.
Gives you an opportunity.
Exactly.
No, thanks a lot.
Cool. So there's a comment from Dash Meko. How do I get the construction software? I think, Mr. London, if you are in, please can you WhatsApp Mr. Dash, or rather, Dash Meko, and deal with the logistics of obtaining the software out of this, obviously, meeting, so that we can proceed with the rest of the guys. So thanks, Dash, for that question. I've got another hand from Busi Siwe. Unmute and ask your question, please.
Greetings, everyone.
Hi, Busi, how's it?
I'm good.
100%.
I just want to check. I'm not sure whether it's the software that populates the installation rate. For example, on the slide that is open right now, the I think the installation and commissioning is 3 million, and all for 2.2 kV switchgear, and also the 6.6 kV transformer installation and commissioning is 800. Is there a percentage of calculating that, or you just estimate by the supply cost? Thank you.
All right. Mr. Lunga, can you tackle that one? I couldn't exactly get the gist of the question, but I'm sure you managed to get it.
No, not quite. I would like for you to come in on this one. Sorry for putting you on the spot. Please, Busisiwe, can you ask the question again? And this time, please be concise, because I think it has to do with electrical specific question. So please be concise so that you can get it, answer it, and we move.
Okay. Basically, I'm asking the installation rate percentage. I'm not sure whether I'm making sense of it. For instance, if I'm buying something with 100 rand, what could be the installation or labor rate on that material?
All right. Are you saying that if I get you properly, Busisiwe, are you saying that the labor rate, is it supposed to be a certain percentage of the material cost?
Yes, something like that. How, for instance, you remember there is an item 2 under rate build up saying labor plus tools. You've got
Yes.
168.
Yes.
Did you get that via some percentage, or what are the calculations that gives you that 168?
Can I go for it, Mr. Blessing, then?
All right. Ms. Busisiwe, let me be very clear here. If we don't use labor as a percentage of the material cost, in this instance, in most cases, you discover that sometimes we have, say, a VSD. Okay, I'll say that would cost you, say, another 4 million. And if we say that we want the labor component to be 10% of what the cost of the material is, we automatically are out of our way. Like, okay, let's look at that example of a 2.2 kV switchgear, right? If we say it's 10%, its unit cost is 3 million. But now we've worked out, Mr. Lunga, we've worked out our labor, right, to be 168,000. To be 168,000. No, that slide was fine, Mr. Lunga.
Okay.
That slide was fine. Can we go back? Yeah, we've worked out that labor plus tools is 168,000. And yet, if we say 10% becomes our labor component, you already see that we're almost doubling up the labor rate. Already takes your price out. So we physically calculate the key resources that we need. What do we need to carry out this activity? Right? We go individually. We need a commissioning engineer. We need this person. Again, this information, you are extrapolating it from the specification, because the specification will tell you the key resources that you need. It's being taken off from the specification. We are not just coming out from the blues. The specification will tell you the key resources that are needed for that particular activity. In most cases, it will tell you that we would need, for compliance purposes, we'll need A, B, C, D. Now you take those compliance requirements and you filter them into your rate. That's how you come up with that rate. But anyway, we have a tendency to, at times, put labor as a percentage of the material cost. You won't be very far from the truth, but you won't be near the truth in any case. So you find yourself in between. It depends on how much time you've got to price this work. If you don't have time, honestly, in most cases, people do that. But if you go the PRM way, this is how you do it. You are doing, remember, we're not just looking at small projects here. One day, Ms. Busisiwe, you might be asked to price to build a power station. When that happens, this is when you see how useful the PRM comes, because obviously you're looking at, you know, it takes time for them to, because they're looking at each and every component, each and every aspect that you've covered in your pricing to say, okay, if they covered this, if they covered for that, if they covered for this, if they covered for that. I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but I hope I am.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, just in closing, Busisiwe, it is not good practice to add labor as a percentage component of material, because labor is informed by the work to be done, and you choose the type of labor based on the work to be done. You can have, for example, in this particular example, a master COC, and senior electrical, a QA inspector, all of that. You need to break it down yourself, bring it all together, and then add it as part of your key resources, including labor. So it's not good practice. We know people do it. Sometimes they get away with it. They are lucky. But in most cases where they are found wanting, then it becomes a problem because they cannot prove how they arrived at those labor costs. So we do not encourage that at all. Break it down from first principles. And this is what this example, or rather this session, is about, showing you how to break everything down. You'll realize the only time that we add percentages is when now everything is put together. We are now allowed for delays, risk, and profits. That's the only time. But besides that, break everything down from first principles. You've got tables, you've got rates, you've got your production output, you've got all your database. Make sure that it's comprehensive so that you can pull it in and pull it out as and when you need them. That's our best advice in that one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I shall assume this is the end. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, we will chat soon or meet soon. You have a pleasant day going further.
Thank you, Mr. Blessing.